The underestimated fleet. The command center of the Cytherian flagship Dominion's Edge hummed with the quiet confidence that came from centuries of galactic supremacy. Commander Vexthor stood before the massive viewing screen, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he studied the data streaming across the display. His reptilian features showed nothing but amusement as he read the intelligence reports. 12 ships, he said, his voice carrying the natural arrogance of his species. The humans send 12 ships to our border. The bridge crew erupted in clicking sounds that served as Cytherian laughter. I have seen cargo haulers with more impressive fleets. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krelnix, approached with additional data tablets. Sir, our scouts confirm the human vessel specifications. Their largest ship measures only 800 meters. Our smallest destroyer is larger than their flagship. More clicking filled the bridge. Intelligence suggests they call it the UES Defiance. Rather fitting, considering how futile their resistance will be. Vexthor's yellow eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. The Cytherian Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They had absorbed dozens of species, each one initially showing the same foolish bravado before accepting their place in the Empire's hierarchy. Humans would be no different. What weapons do they carry? Vexthor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would be disappointing. Primitive kinetic weapons, basic energy shields, and what appears to be experimental plasma technology, Krelnix reported. Nothing that should penetrate our quantum barriers. Their ships appear to be constructed from standard titanium alloys, not even reinforced with graviton weaving. The bridge crew's clicking intensified. To the Cytherians, it was like watching children play with toys, pretending to be warriors. Vexthor had conquered species with fleets 10 times this size. These humans wouldn't even provide adequate target practice for his crew. Admiral Zektar sends his regards. Krelnix continued, reading from his personal communicator. He says if we can't handle 12 human ships, perhaps we should request assignment to cargo escort duty. The insult drew roars of laughter from the crew. Vexthor's pride stung slightly, but he maintained his composure. Signal the fleet. We'll finish this quickly and be back to base before the next meal cycle. The Admiral will have his victory, and the humans will have their lesson. Meanwhile, 8 light years away, the bridge of the UES Defiance told a different story entirely. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood calmly at the center of organized chaos, her dark eyes scanning multiple data streams while her crew worked with quiet efficiency. Unlike the Cytherian bridge, there was no laughter here, no boasting, only focused preparation. Tactical report, Mr. Chen, she said, her voice steady and controlled. Lieutenant Marcus Chen looked up from his console, his face serious. Cytherian fleet consists of 47 vessels, Captain. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 heavy cruisers, and 32 destroyers. Their formation suggests they expect minimal resistance. Elena nodded slowly. They're following standard Imperial doctrine. Overwhelming force applied quickly to break enemy morale. She turned to her science officer. Dr. Tanaka, status on the new systems. Dr. Yuki Tanaka smiled slightly, the first hint of emotion on the bridge. All quantum disruptors are online and calibrated. The phase shift generators are performing within expected parameters. The new armor plating has been tested and retested. She paused, her smile growing wider. They're going to be very surprised, Captain. Elena had spent the last 3 years preparing for this moment. Earth's first contact with the Galactic Council had been a disaster. The human delegation had been laughed at, dismissed, and told to return when humanity had grown up. The council members had treated Earth like a primitive curiosity, barely worth their attention. But Elena Rodriguez was not the type of person to accept dismissal quietly. Born in the underground cities of Mars, she had grown up watching her people struggle against impossible odds. When Earth's government decided to build a proper space fleet, they had chosen their commanders carefully. They needed people who understood that respect was earned, not given. Captain, came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the Cytherian fleet." "On screen," Elena replied. The image of Commander Vexthor appeared, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been a smile. "I am Commander Vexthor of the Cytherian Imperial Fleet. You have entered sovereign Cytherian space with an armed fleet. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be escorted to processing facilities." Elena stepped forward, her posture relaxed but her eyes hard as steel. "I am Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Command. We are conducting routine patrol operations in neutral space, as granted by the Galactic Accords." Vexthor's clicking laughter echoed through the bridge. "Neutral space. Little human, this sector has been Cytherian territory for longer than your species has had written language. Your tiny fleet is trespassing, and the penalty is absorption into our empire." "I see," Elena replied calmly. "And if we refuse, then your ships will be disabled, and your crews will be educated about their new place in the galaxy." Vexthor's forearms spread wide in a gesture of mock generosity. "We are not unreasonable. Serve faithfully, and your people will be well treated." Elena was quiet for a long moment, studying the alien commander's face. Around her, the bridge crew continued their preparations, unaffected by the threat. Finally, she spoke. "Commander Vexthor, I appreciate your offer, but I'm afraid we must decline." The Cytherian's yellow eyes narrowed. "You refuse. Do you not understand your situation? We have 47 ships to your 12. Our weapons could vaporize your entire fleet before you could fire a single shot." "Perhaps," Elena agreed. "But I've found that numbers don't always tell the whole story." She gestured to her communications officer to close the channel, then turned to her crew. "All stations, final preparations. Mr. Chen, are the other ships ready?" "All captains report ready, ma'am. UES determination, UES resilience, and the others are standing by for your signal." Elena walked slowly to the captain's chair, her mind running through the tactical scenarios one last time. The Cytherians were positioning their fleet in a classic envelopment pattern, designed to surround and overwhelm their opponents. It was textbook Imperial strategy, and Elena had studied it extensively during her years at the Academy. "Dr. Tanaka," she said quietly, "activate the quantum scramblers. Let's see how well their sensors work when they can't trust their own readings." The science officer's fingers danced across her console. "Scramblers active. Their targeting systems should be getting some very interesting data right about now." On the Cytherian flagship, Sub-Commander Krelnix frowned at his sensor display. "Sir, we're getting some unusual readings from the human fleet. Their energy signatures are fluctuating." Vexthor glanced at the display dismissively. "Probably engine problems. Their technology is so primitive, I'm surprised their ships hold together in vacuum." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the human flagship. One shot should be enough to convince the others to surrender." But as the Cytherian fleet moved into attack formation, something strange began to happen. The human ships, which had appeared to be drifting helplessly in space, suddenly began to move with unexpected grace and speed. Their formation shifted and flowed like a living thing, each ship perfectly coordinated with the others. Elena watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. "Mr. Chen, signal the fleet. Execute Silent Thunder." The lieutenant's hands moved quickly over his controls. "Signal sent. All ships acknowledge." For a moment, space seemed to hold its breath. The Cytherian fleet continued its approach, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The human ships maintained their defensive formation, looking every bit as outmatched as their specifications suggested. Then Elena spoke the words that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. "All ships," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the communication network. "Human command. Fire." When arrogance meets reality. The moment Captain Rodriguez's order crackled through space, everything changed. The 12 human ships, which had appeared small and insignificant against the massive Cytherian fleet, suddenly revealed their true nature. What looked like simple plasma cannons unfolded into complex weapon arrays. Hull plates shifted and rearranged, exposing weapon systems that hadn't appeared on any sensor scan. Commander Vexthor had exactly 3 seconds to realize something was terribly wrong before the UES Defiance opened fire. The first shots weren't the primitive kinetic rounds or basic plasma bursts the Cytherians expected. Instead, streams of quantum-disrupted energy lanced out from the human ships, passing through the Cytherian shields as if they weren't there. The quantum disruptors, Dr. Tanaka's greatest achievement, didn't try to overpower the enemy shields. They convinced the shields that the incoming energy was friendly fire. Impossible. Vexthor roared as his flagship shuddered under direct hits. Their weapons can't penetrate our barriers. Sub-Commander Krelnix frantically worked his console, trying to understand what was happening. Sir, our shields are intact, but we're taking damage directly to the hull. It's as if the energy is passing right through our defenses. The bridge erupted in chaos as more hits struck the Dominion's edge. But this was only the beginning of the Cytherians' nightmare. As Vexthor watched in horror, the human ships began to do something that defied everything he knew about space combat. They disappeared. Not destroyed, not retreating, but actually vanishing from sensors entirely. One moment they were there, firing their impossible weapons, and the next they were gone, leaving only empty space and confused Cytherian targeting systems. Where did they go? Vexthor demanded, his 4 arms gesticulating wildly. Ships don't just disappear. The answer came in the form of weapons fire from directly behind the Cytherian formation. The human ships had somehow repositioned themselves without being detected, and now they were systematically dismantling the supposedly superior alien fleet with surgical precision. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Elena Rodriguez watched the battle unfold with calm satisfaction. Phase shift generators are performing beautifully, Dr. Tanaka. How long can we maintain this? Another 20 minutes at full power, the science officer replied, monitoring her instruments carefully. The quantum signature masking is holding steady. To their sensors, we're just background radiation. Elena nodded and turned to her tactical officer. Mr. Chen, target their command ships. Let's see how well they coordinate without their leaders. Marcus Chen's fingers moved across his console with practiced efficiency, targeting their 3 dreadnoughts now. Quantum torpedoes armed and ready. Fire, Elena commanded. The torpedoes that launched from the human ships bore no resemblance to anything in the galactic military databases. They moved faster than conventional weapons, shifting in and out of phase to avoid defensive fire, and when they struck their targets, they didn't simply explode. They created localized quantum disruptions that tore apart the molecular bonds holding the enemy ships together. The first Cytherian dreadnought, the Imperial Conquest, simply came apart like a child's toy. One moment it was a massive, threatening presence on the battlefield, and the next it was expanding debris field. The second dreadnought tried to retreat, but the human ships anticipated the maneuver, appearing directly in its path and delivering a devastating broadside that left it drifting powerless. Vexthor could only watch in stunned disbelief as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed by ships he had dismissed as primitive toys. His sensors were useless, his weapons couldn't hit targets that flickered in and out of existence, and his ships were being picked apart with an efficiency that spoke of intimate knowledge of Cytherian weaknesses. "How is this possible?" he whispered, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "How do they know our tactical protocols? How do they know where to hit us?" The answer, though Vexthor would never learn it, lay in 3 years of careful intelligence gathering. Elena Rodriguez and her fellow captains had studied every available piece of information about Cytherian technology, tactics, and psychology. They had run thousands of simulations, analyzed every battle the Cytherians had ever fought, and prepared for this moment with a methodical precision that had made humanity survivors. "Sir," Krelnix shouted over the sounds of failing systems, "the stellar dominance is gone. The Victory's Edge is reporting critical damage. Half our destroyer squadron has been destroyed." Vexthor's yellow eyes darted across the tactical display, trying to find some pattern, some weakness he could exploit. But there was none. The humans moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, and vanished before return fire could be coordinated. It was unlike anything in Cytherian military doctrine. "Signal retreat," he ordered, the words bitter on his forked tongue. "All ships, emergency jump to rally point 7. But even retreat proved impossible. As the surviving Cytherian ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, they found their jump engines mysteriously malfunctioning. Unknown to them, Dr. Tanaka's quantum scramblers were doing more than just confusing sensors. They were creating localized distortions in the space-time fabric that made FTL travel impossible. "Jump drives are offline," reported the navigation officer. "Something is interfering with the quantum field generators." Elena Rodriguez's voice suddenly echoed through the Cytherian communication system, somehow bypassing their encryption and security protocols. "Commander Vexthor, this is Captain Rodriguez. I believe you wanted to discuss surrender terms." The Cytherian commander's mandibles clicked rapidly in what his species used to express extreme agitation. "How are you accessing our communications?" "The same way we're accessing everything else," Elena replied calmly. "Superior technology, superior tactics, and superior preparation. Now, I'm prepared to allow your surviving ships to leave this system. But first, you're going to send a message to your Admiral Zektar." "What message?" Vexthor asked, though he already knew his situation was hopeless. "Tell him that the next time the Cytherian Empire encounters human ships, they should remember what happened here today. Tell him that Earth is no longer asking for a seat at the galactic table. We're taking one. And tell him that any attempt to interfere with human expansion will be met with the same response you received today." Around the shattered remains of his fleet, Vexthor could see the human ships materializing one by one, their weapons still trained on the surviving Cytherian vessels. They had revealed themselves now, confident in their victory, and Vexthor could finally see what they were truly facing. The ships were beautiful in their deadly efficiency. Their hulls bore the scars of countless modifications and upgrades, but every line spoke of purpose and power. These weren't the primitive vessels his intelligence reports had described. They were works of art, created by a species that understood that survival sometimes required the willingness to do whatever was necessary. "Your people," Vexthor said slowly. "They are not what we expected." Elena's image appeared on his screen, and for the first time, the Cytherian commander could see the human who had just destroyed his fleet. She was smaller than most species, built lightly compared to the massive Cytherians, but her eyes held a strength that made Vexthor's blood run cold. "No," she agreed. "We're not. We're what happens when you push a species to the edge and expect them to quietly disappear. We're what happens when you underestimate the power of beings who have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for." Within hours of the battle, news of the Cytherian defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had cowered before the Empire for centuries suddenly found themselves reevaluating their assumptions about the newcomers from Earth. Diplomatic channels that had been cold to human approaches suddenly became very warm indeed. On Earth, Elena Rodriguez and her crew were welcomed home as heroes, but they knew their work was just beginning. They had sent a message to the galaxy, but messages needed to be reinforced with actions. The human fleet would continue to grow, continue to explore, and continue to demonstrate that humanity had earned its place among the stars. And somewhere in the depths of space, on board a heavily damaged Cytherian flagship, Commander Vexthor composed his report to Admiral Zektar. It was not an easy message to write, but it was necessary. The galaxy had changed, and the age of easy conquest was over. The humans had spoken, and the universe had listened.